So I'd like to express my gratitude for allowing me to speak in the support of this very important bills. So it's a matter of grave concern that our environment is deteriorating at a very alarming rate, and we have been experiencing in the past decades a spate of natural disasters which are due to the climate change that is being caused. So it is also a matter of pride for us that under the effective leadership of our Prime Minister, our government has undertaken a wide range of mitigation and adaptation measures, and India is now leading the world in this fight to save the environment. So we are also learning that along with the reduction of greenhouse gases and other pollutants is the conservation of our precious wildlife, our flora and fauna, and the health of our ecosystem, which play a vital role in the preservation of our environment. So it's a fact that nature does not have any political boundaries. सर जब ब्राज़ील में फॉरेस्ट जलाए जाते हैं तो उसका इफेक्ट हमारे साउथ वेस्ट मानसून पे पड़ता है. सो इट इज़ अ कलेक्टिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ ऑल गवर्नमेंट्स टू टेक प्रिवेंटिव मेजर्स फॉर द प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ द इकोसिस्टम्स. It is the existing interdependence of these species for their mutual survival and the continuity of this chain which is vital for our environment, sir. And it is important to maintain these linkages. And there are various examples of how the destruction of just one species has disturbed the ecological balance of the entire region. So it has taken millions and millions of years for nature to achieve this perfect balance. But sad to say that जो हम लोग हैं, our humankind, our human history, which is only 200,000 to 300,000 years old, we have emerged as the prime disruptor of this balance. We are paying a very heavy price for it, sir. But it is also a matter of concern that जो हम लोग के future generations होंगे, उनको कितनी हेवी प्राइस पे करनी होगी, इसको हम लोग अभी क्वांटिफाई नहीं कर सकते हैं. आज जो हम लोग का ग्रीन क्लाइमेट बिल है, इट रन्स इनटू बिलियंस एंड बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स. आगे व्हाट विल हैपन, नोबडी नोज, सर. So it is with a great deal of foresight that our Parliament had passed the Wildlife Protection Act in 1972, which basically provides the legal framework for the protection of various species and of wildlife, wild animals, and the management of the habitat and regulation and control of also the trade in wildlife and wildlife products. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 76 further shifted the subject of protection of wildlife and birds from the state list to the 7th schedule in the current list. Sir, आजकल जो one of the major threats to wildlife है, it is this illegal trade which our former speaker just mentioned. And this illegal trade is mainly due to many superstitious beliefs. सर, हम लोगों के टाइगर की हड्डियां आज चाइना और नेपाल बेची जाती हैं. वो हमारे हिमालयन बेयर का पिटीटी ग्रैंड आज बहुत डिमांड में है. मस्ट डियर के मस्ट ग्लैंड्स डिमांड में है. एंड देयर मेनी अदर फॉरेस्ट प्रोडक्ट्स ग्रेटर हिमालयन रीजन में. देयर वेरी मेनी वैराइटीज ऑफ मशरूम्स व्हिच आर इलीगली स्मगल्ड आउट ऑफ द कंट्री. So the CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, was constituted in 1975, and it actually regulates the trade in over 38,700 species of wild animals and plants. And one of the requirements of this convention is that all member countries take appropriate measures to enforce its provisions and prohibit trade in the violation of its prey. So we became a party to this convention in 1976, and as our Honourable Minister informed us, India has been implementing the various provisions of CITES through the Customs Act of 1962, the Foreign Trade Act, the Exempt Policy, and the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. But however, the CITES Standing Committee, it found certain gaps in the implementation of these provisions. And one of the serious repercussions was that a recommendation was passed with respect to India to prohibit trade in the CITES listed species. So India has considerable exports of such species such as agarwood, red sanders, medicinal and aromatic plants, wood and other wood products. And this recommendation would have an adverse impact on our exports and also on the lakhs of people who are engaged in such agroforestry and similar activities. And of course, the majority of these people engaged in such activities are generally the tribals, the village communities, which also constitute a large percentage of our economically, socially marginalized sections of our society. So it was the main concern of our government which has prompted this Wildlife Protection Amendment Bill of 2021. and this proposes to amend the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 so as to incorporate these necessary changes for effective implementation of the CITES provisions. So, iske saath saath, there are many other relevant amendments that have also been added. And the first is the amendment to the preamble. So, aaj jo protection of wildlife hai, it has acquired a much wider aspect. Apart from protection from hunting and killing, we also have to focus on protecting the habitats, ensuring of natural fodder, management of forests, and curbing of illegal trade in wildlife. And these broader actions are required today to ensure the ecological and environment security of our country. Therefore, the preamble of the Act is proposed to be amended, and the words protection of wildlife, animals and birds has been substituted by the conservation, management and protection of wildlife. Another important proposal, sir, in this amendment is that till now the endangered and the protected species were placed into 6 categories, 6 schedules, and this was not very clear. And the Principal Act, the list of protected and endangered species now have been placed into 4 schedules. The Schedule 1 and 2 are for the protected and endangered animal species. Schedule 3 includes the specified plants. And the Schedule 4 lists all the species specified by the CITES. The government has also added a new Chapter 5B in the Act for the regulation of trade in endangered species of wild fauna and flora. And as per this proposal, an Additional Director General of Forest, the rank of Additional Director General of Forest, will be appointed as the management authority who will be responsible for the issuance of all permits and certificates for trade in the scheduled specimens. So the central government, it is proposed that the central government shall also designate one or more institutes engaged in research on the species as a scientific authority. These bodies with experts in various species shall advise the management authority in matters referred to it and also help to monitor the export permits granted for species listed in Appendix 2 of the Schedule 4. So today, when we talk about invasive species, there are 2 prime examples I want to place in front of us. One is the water hyacinth. So this was a plant brought in India in the 18th century by Lady Hastings from South America. Iske phool, purple flowers are very beautiful, and that was the reason this plant was introduced in India. And आज हमारी जितनी भी ज़्यादातर हमारे lakes हैं, जो छोटे rivers हैं, they are being choked by this plant, and it is destroying our freshwater ecosystem. Similarly, sir, the lantana weed, which was also brought in by the British, it is overrunning all our forests, and almost 40% of our tiger reserves are being covered by this weed. It is destroying the natural fodder, and it is also affecting in the Deccan area, the agriculture in the Deccan area. आज हमारे डियर स्पीसीज हैं और भी हर्बिवोर्स हैं जिनको नेचुरल फॉडर मिलता था वो अब लंटाना ने खत्म कर दिया है. So the National Biodiversity Authority has identified 117 invasive species in India, which are posing a major threat to the biological diversity in 7 out of our 10 biogeographical zones of our country. So it is very important that these invasive species are curbed, and this amendment will go a long way in helping us to manage these weeds. So the new section 62A in the bill proposes to empower the central government to regulate or prohibit the import, trade, possession and proliferation of invasive alien species, which are not native to India and whose introduction may pose a threat to wildlife or habitat in India. So along with this, attention has also to be paid that India being such a large country, we have very differentiated ecological zones with their different climates and geography. And we have to be careful about introducing species which are native to our country, but can be alien to the different biozones of our own country. One of the recent examples is that spotted deer, the Asiatic lion, and even elephants had been introduced in the islands of Andamans and Nicobar. And now they are proven to be destroying the ecology of those islands. So attention has to be paid, and with careful study only, that we can transport one species from one part of the country to the other country. So there have always been village communities and forest tribes living either in the forest or around the forest, and they were always dependent on the forest produce and other activities for their livelihood. उनको अपने अगर गाय बकरियां चरानी हो, उनको अगर फॉडर चाहिए, उनको अगर लकड़ी चाहिए अपने खाने के लिए या पानी चाहिए, the forest was the only place where they could go. So the Section 29 of the Act amends the earlier provisions, which carried penal provisions, and now ensures that such bona fide use of forest resources by the local communities shall not attract any penal action. So this is a very welcome step, and it will prevent undue harassment of such forest communities from local authorities, and I want to thank the Honourable Minister for bringing this amendment. So, but simultaneously, to discourage any breaking of rules and violation of the provisions of the Act, the monetary penalties are also being proposed to be increased. So certain other important amendments have been proposed for the better management of the protected areas. In particularly, the requirement of a management plan for sanctuaries and national parks has been prepared in accordance with the guidelines issued by the central government. So management of forests is another very important aspect of wildlife conservation. It includes the population census of animals, the eradication of alien plants, the adequate presence of green fodder for herbivores, and the required foliage density, as well as conditions of water bodies and streams. So the Wildlife Institute of India is one of the premier institutes, especially in regard to tiger conservation, and such bodies will now have an increasing role to play in the proper and effective management of our forests and wildlife. So a new section 62B has also been inserted, and this proposes to empower the central government to call on any information or report from a state government or any such agency, and also issue directions for the effective implementation of the provisions of the Act. And this will help to effectively manage and monitor all such conservation activities that are that will be going on in our country. So the concept of conservation of forests has always been a part of our ancient culture and heritage. Sustainability was ingrained in the thought process of the early Indians since the time of the Vedas. And the forests at those times were divided into three categories, mainly the Mahavan, which is the Great Forest Reserve, and today we have more than 100 such reserves in the country. So the Srivan of those times corresponds to all the forest produce essential for the livelihood of human beings and livestock. And so today our country produces an exhaustive range of forest produce such as timber, sandalwood, plywood, kendu leaves, bamboo, sal seed, honey, medicinal plants, rubber and cashew and spices. So the third category in the ancient times was the Tapovan, where the sages resided and no animals or trees could be harmed. And these are our natural sanctuaries, our national sanctuaries of today. So I'm proud to say that under the able leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister of our country, we are gradually reviving our glorious past and culture, and so this bill will prove to be another important step in that direction. I had mentioned earlier that we are leading the world in the fight to protect the environment, and the enactment of this bill will put India in the forefront of the battle to save the ecosystems of our planet. So I would like to congratulate the Honourable Minister for the introduction of this bill, which not only fulfills the provisions of the CITES, but also covers all aspects of conservation, protection, management of wildlife in our country. Thank you, sir.